Good day. Please just call me Lynn. I'm a cum laude graduate and the breadwinner of my family. My sole purpose is to lift my family out of poverty. But sometimes, despite all my hard work, I can't help but feel like the problems never end. Then something unexpected happened that changed the course of my life. I met a mysterious elderly billionaire who made me an offer too tempting to refuse. That's when everything started. This is the story of decisions I had to make, heavy promises I had to carry, and the journey that pushed me to face challenges involving dreams, family, and love. I hope my story becomes a lesson and an inspiration. This is Mr. Hope, your favorite narrator, bringing you another great life-changing story. Ashley, thank you for these new shoes. You're really the best, Darla shouted, hugging her older sister Ashley after receiving a pair of white sneakers from her. Ashley smiled warmly, her heart full at seeing her younger sister's joy over the small birthday gift. I'm sorry, Darla, they're cheap. I still have a lot of bills to pay. Water and electric bills are due soon, Ashley said with a half smile. Darla grinned wide, showing her missing front tooth. It doesn't matter if it's cheap, sis. I love it. I know you really pushed yourself just to buy this for me. I'll take good care of them, I promise. Ashley ruffled her sister's hair. Don't worry, Darla. I promise I'll become rich. When that happens, you can wear different shoes every day if you want. We'll never have to worry about money again. Mildred, their mother, chuckled from the kitchen. Oh, Ashley, stop filling your sister's head with dreams. She might take you seriously. Ashley rolled her eyes playfully. Don't you trust me, Mom? I do, Mildred replied as she placed the vegetable stew on the table. I'm proud of your ambitions, but you just graduated. You deserve a break, even just for a year. You're a cum laude, for goodness sake. Ashley laughed as her mom tried to tickle her. Laughter filled the room, and even Darla joined in, watching them happily. We're not rich, Mom, Ashley said. Breaks aren't in our vocabulary, but don't worry, I can still handle it. Tomorrow I'll go to the city and look for a job. Ashley had just graduated with a degree in computer science, the first in her family to graduate with Latin honors. Despite their hardships, she pushed through school by working party jobs in different establishments. She'd been a service crew member at fast food joints, a student assistant at her university, and took long, exhausting commutes just to save a few bucks. She finally made it, and her dream was clear: to pull her family out of poverty. As she watched her mom and sister chatting, Ashley smiled quietly. She made a silent promise that Darla would never have to go through the struggles she did. But fate had other plans. She landed a decent job at a tech company, but less than a year in, her mother fell seriously ill and needed maintenance medication. Ashley's monthly income barely covered their basic needs, often leaving nothing for herself. Over time, the hopeful Ashley became increasingly aware of life's harsh realities. You're not going to finish that fishbowl vinegar, are you? It's too spicy, her friend Pearl said, handing her a tissue. Ashley and Pearl became close after working at the same office and staying in the same boarding house. Spicy? Ashley replied. I barely feel anything anymore. Dramatic much, Pearl teased. Who broke your heart now? Ashley shook her head and continued eating. No one, I'm just numb. Bills have that effect. Pearl sighed, understanding exactly what Ashley meant. Their salaries were just enough to keep the household afloat, never more. We'll make it one day, Ash. Maybe not today, but someday, Pearl said. Someday, Ashley repeated softly. I used to think hard work was enough, but look, my income only lets us survive. Suddenly, a shout interrupted them. Hot! That's hot! They turned to see an elderly man choking after attempting to stuff a freshly fried egg ball into his mouth. That's straight from the fryer, sir. Why would you eat it whole? Ashley quickly offered him a glass of water. The old man chuckled in embarrassment as he took it. He had to throw the egg ball away. It was ruined now. Shame, it looks so good. But thank you, miss. What's your name? Ashley, she said. Are you from around here? I don't think I've seen you before. You're right, I'm not from here. I was just passing through and saw you and your friend eating like you were really enjoying yourselves. Ashley laughed while the man shook his head, smiling. Somehow that brief interaction made her feel a bit lighter. You've never had egg balls or fish balls before? Ashley asked skeptically. As strange as it sounds, no, he replied, glancing at his now empty water cup. I overheard your conversation with your friend earlier. Sounds like you're ready to give up. Ashley sighed and nodded. Yeah, no matter how hard we work, we barely make it. Do you want to be rich? The old man asked. Of course, who wouldn't? Ashley replied. At this point, I'd sell my soul to secure my family's future. The old man chuckled. You sure about that? He asked. Ashley frowned, not understanding. You're saying you'd sell your soul, just to be rich? He repeated. She scratched her head. Yes, but let's be real, that's not going to happen. He smiled, then handed her a business card. Ashley's eyes widened when she saw the logo of one of the most powerful corporations in the country. I own that company, he said. My grandson manages it now. Pearl and even the street vendor nearby laughed at his claim. I'm serious, he added. You can look it up. My name's Simon Martinez. Ashley smirked and pulled out her phone. Okay, sir, but if you're bluffing, you owe us egg balls. Simon chuckled as Ashley typed in the name. Her eyes went wide when the search results matched the man in front of her. No way! Even Pearl and the vendor were stunned. Now that you know who I am, can we talk? Simon asked. I have an offer for you. Ashley felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. Nervous because she didn't know what kind of conversation they were about to have. Excited because this might be the big opportunity she'd been waiting for. Once inside their boarding house, Ashley sat next to Simon. She couldn't stay still, nervously pinching her fingers. Look, sir, if you're planning to make my friend your sugar baby, I won't let that happen, so please behave, Pearl said from behind. Simon laughed at Pearl's bluntness. Don't worry, I'm not the kind of man you're thinking of. He then turned to Ashley. I want to offer you $3 million, and aside from that, I promise that you and your family will never have to worry about money again. But there are 2 conditions. Ashley stiffened. You're scaring me, sir. Simon smiled calmly. Don't worry, it's not something outrageous. All I want is for you to marry my grandson, and if you two end up having a child, even better. I'm sorry. What? Ashley said, feeling slightly insulted. She didn't fully understand why, but something about it rubbed her the wrong way. Do I look like someone you can buy? Do you think I'm the kind of woman who'd just bear your grandson's children for money? Relax, Ashley. You're overthinking it. I don't see you that way, Simon explained. You helped me earlier, and now I want to give you a chance to achieve your dream of becoming rich. I asked you earlier if you were willing to sell your soul for wealth. You said yes. That's why I made this offer. Ashley still didn't feel completely at ease, but she couldn't bring herself to say no either. She knew she'd never be able to save $3 million in her entire lifetime, much less achieve lifelong financial freedom. I'll give you time to think about it, Simon said. There's no rush. If you'd like, you can get to know my grandson first. I'll even arrange the date for you. If you change your mind, just call me. With that, Simon stood as his bodyguards arrived. A luxurious car pulled up in front of their boarding house. Simon waved goodbye to Ashley before driving off. As soon as he left, Pearl pulled Ashley into their room. Hide that business card. A lot of gossipers heard your conversation earlier. They might try to take your place. I don't want to, but I can't turn it down either, Ashley said, sighing deeply. Pearl smiled faintly. Opportunities like this don't come around often, but it's scary too. I'm worried about you. Ashley clenched her fists and looked at Pearl with determination in her eyes. I want to accept the offer. Can you help me? Without hesitation, Pearl went to her bed and grabbed her laptop. Before anything else, let's do a background check on that old billionaire, especially on his grandson, your potential husband. We need to make sure you'll be safe. What if he's secretly part of a mafia or something? Ashley chuckled and followed her friend. They started digging on social media and across various articles and tabloids, but no matter how many sources they found, one word kept popping up. Sterile. Could it be true? Pearl asked. Jacob Martinez, Simon's grandson, is rumored to be sterile. They also tried checking how many grandchildren Simon had, but all their research pointed to only one person, Jacob. He was the sole heir to all of Simon's companies. Why are you just staring? Found something? Pearl asked. Ashley shook her head. No, but Jacob Martinez. He's really handsome. Too bad if he really is sterile, Pearl sighed. Such a waste of a face. Just look at that jawline. Ashley laughed and shook her head. Pearl could joke around no matter the situation. Well, I guess that part's a plus, Ashley said. At least nothing physical will happen, since he can't have kids. You're not sure about that, Pearl replied, making Ashley smack her arm. Just promise me you'll be careful, Ashley. I promise, Pearl, and if anything feels off, I'll run away immediately. Ashley spent the whole night thinking about her decision. The next day, she called Simon and accepted his offer. Simon kept his word. Even before the civil wedding with Jacob took place, Ashley received the $3 million. She was able to pay off all their debts, admit her mother to a proper hospital, and even started planning a small business in their local town. Ashley sat quietly at the courthouse, watching Jacob sign the marriage contract. He showed no emotion. Every time their eyes met, he would simply roll his eyes at her, like she was nothing but dust he had to put up with. You'll live here from now on, Simon said. I know you want to be with your family, but I'll have them move to a separate house. I want you and Jacob to live together so you can serve each other better and get to know one another. Ashley glanced at Jacob after hearing Simon's words. Jacob raised an eyebrow but didn't protest. I'm tired, Simon continued. I'll spend the night here. Don't worry, the household staff will arrive tomorrow. I won't be disturbing you. Simon laughed and patted his grandson on the shoulder before heading upstairs to his room. That left Ashley and Jacob alone, neither of them interested in talking. Ashley carried her bags upstairs, with Jacob following behind with a single duffel bag, not offering any help. Once in the room, Ashley began unpacking. Aren't you going to unpack? She asked. Where are your clothes? They're in the other room. I'll be sleeping there once Grandpa leaves. Ashley fell silent and turned back to her unpacking. Do you hate this marriage? She asked. Do I look like I'm enjoying it? Jacob snapped. I don't know what you're thinking, Ashley replied calmly. But I'm not here to argue. Even if we don't treat each other as husband and wife, can't we at least be civil and respect one another? Jacob sat up from the bed, facing her. I don't need to be civil with a woman who was paid to be my wife, and you don't need to act like some saint. I know you're just here for the money. Ashley took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Jacob was undeniably attractive, with many admirable qualities, but his words were sharp, his attitude cutting. Believe whatever you want, she said. Or maybe you want to draw a line down the bed. You probably don't want to touch a paid woman. Jacob didn't respond, stunned by her words. Ashley smiled faintly and continued moving her things into place. Ashley, overwhelmed by all the organizing, finally dropped herself onto the bed when she was done. "So this is why rich people always look stress-free," she muttered, "because they sleep on beds this soft." She closed her eyes and sighed several times. As much as she tried to ignore it, Jacob's treatment of her still stung, but she couldn't really blame him for thinking she was just after the money, because in truth, that's exactly why she accepted Simon's offer. "Hopefully tomorrow his mood improves," Ashley whispered before closing her eyes, expecting only to nap. Instead, she fell into a deep sleep. When she opened her eyes again, it was already the middle of the night, and Jacob was suddenly on top of her. He wore only an unbuttoned dress shirt. "Jacob, are you drunk? You stink!" Ashley gagged, covering her nose from the strong smell of alcohol. "If I don't drink, I won't be able to do what Grandpa wants," he muttered. What are you talking about?" Jacob smirked. "You don't know? Or are you just pretending? What do married couples do after they get married?" Ashley's eyes widened. "Wait, are you talking about sex?" "Yes. What else would I be talking about?" Ashley panicked, stunned by his seriousness. "Wait, aren't you sterile? No offense." Jacob laughed dryly. "You think I'm sterile just because social media says so?" He leaned closer. "Why don't you try me? See for yourself." Ashley didn't even have time to respond. Jacob suddenly kissed her. She told herself to push him away, but for some reason she couldn't explain. She didn't. She just closed her eyes and reminded herself, "This is part of the contract. Just one night. Just one." The next morning, Ashley woke up beside Jacob, who was shirtless. She didn't dare look under the blanket for fear of what she might see. She immediately got up and rushed to the bathroom for a shower. Just as she came out, she ran into Jacob on his way in. "Good morning," he said. Jacob stood still for a moment, unsure of what to say. Then, without another word, he looked away and entered the bathroom. Ashley headed downstairs and found Simon quietly eating breakfast. "Come, eat with me," he said cheerfully. "Wanda, bring Ms. Ashley some extra eggs, and tell Jacob to join us too." Wanda nodded and went to the kitchen. "You'll have 3 housekeepers here, plus a gardener. If ever you need more people, just call me," Simon added. Ashley nodded and glanced at the food on the table. A few moments later, her utensils arrived, and she began eating, her stomach grumbling from skipping dinner the night before. "So, was the first night a success?" Simon suddenly asked, catching her off guard as she sipped her water. Ashley almost choked. Simon laughed. "Based on your reaction, I guess it was. At last, I can finally pray to God for a great-grandchild." Ashley hesitated. "Sir, I wanted to ask, all these articles saying Jacob's sterile, are they true?" Simon chuckled and shook his head. "Eat your food, Ashley. Don't waste your energy worrying about those things. Just enjoy your new life." Moments later, Jacob arrived, and Simon insisted he join them at the table. While eating, only Simon chatted enthusiastically. Neither Ashley nor Jacob could look at each other. "Ashley, do you want to go somewhere? You'll get bored here. Maybe you'd like to go shopping? I gave you a credit card. Use it. No need to ask for permission." Jacob sighed in annoyance. Ashley turned to Simon. "Actually, I'd like to visit my mom and sister at their new place." "Of course. Jacob, you'll drive her." "But Grandpa, I have something important at the office," Jacob protested. "I'm your boss, Jacob," Simon interrupted. "You'll do as I say. You don't have work today, and I'm asking you as your grandfather to take your wife." Jacob sighed deeply, clearly irritated. Ashley, on the other hand, smiled, amused by how easily Simon overruled his grandson. When they arrived at her family's new home, Darla ran out and hugged Ashley tightly. Ashley noticed the shoes her sister was wearing. "Darla, Why are you still wearing those? Didn't I buy you better ones? I like these better, sis. They're special. You gave them to me for my birthday, Darla said sweetly, then turned to Jacob. Hi, Jacob. Jacob gave her a faint smile before Darla dragged them into the house. When their mother saw them, she smiled brightly and hugged Ashley. What are you doing here? You should be honeymooning. It's too early for a visit, she teased. We're doing fine here. Ashley smiled and glanced at Jacob, who was quietly observing. Her mother had no idea that their marriage was a setup. She believed Ashley and Jacob had been together for years and had decided to marry for love. I just missed you all, Ashley said, especially this one. She pinched Darla's cheeks, making the little girl laugh and run off. You got here just in time. I made your favorite, pot roast, Mildred said. Jacob, let's eat. Jacob was about to decline, still full from breakfast, but Ashley quickly covered his mouth with her finger. I know you're full, but we can't say no to Mum. She'll turn into a dragon if we reject her food. Jacob said nothing, and when Mildred returned to usher them to the table, he reluctantly followed. Though still full, the couple ate again, out of courtesy. Ashley, you're amazing, Darla said. You kept your promise. We have a nice house now, and I have lots of shoes. She even raised her arms to show how many. Ashley and Mildred laughed. I never thought we'd rise this far, Mildred said with emotion. I keep thanking God every day, especially now that you're married and making decisions for yourself. Just don't worry too much about us, okay? Now that you're a wife, focus on Jacob. Ashley turned to Jacob, who sat beside her. She nodded, forcing a small smile. I'll still visit often, Mom. You know I always miss your cooking. Mildred laughed and held Ashley's hand. Then she looked at Jacob and smiled gently. Jacob, take care of Ashley. We love her so much. Her whole life she's worked hard just to provide for us. I've been ill for a while now, and when you came into her life, it was like a blessing. I just want her to be happy. Jacob turned to Mildred and gave her a small, polite smile. I won't let anything happen to Ashley, he said. Ashley knew he was only saying it to ease her mum's worries, but she appreciated the gesture nonetheless. At least, if not Jacob, then Simon was always watching over her, protecting her in the situation she had walked into. When Ashley and Jacob returned home, Ashley headed straight to their bedroom to rest. She wasn't worried that Jacob would follow, since Simon had already left, and Jacob made it clear he would sleep in the other room. What's going to happen to us? Ashley wondered as she lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Where is this fake marriage heading? Just then, the door suddenly opened and Jacob walked in. Ashley sat up and stared at him as he walked to the couch and let out a deep sigh. I thought you were sleeping in the other room, she asked. Grandpa had my things moved in here. Ashley immediately walked to the walk-in closet and, sure enough, found Jacob's belongings there. She returned to the bedroom, speaking awkwardly. Looks like he found out about your plan. What now? You'll just get scolded if you move everything back. If you want, take the bed. I'll just sleep on the floor, she offered. Jacob glared at her. No need. It's fine if we share the bed. He didn't say another word, just closed his eyes. Ashley shook her head. You're a joy to talk to, she mumbled before walking out and heading to the kitchen. There she found their new cook, Mrs. Amber, along with her daughter Lydia, who also worked as one of the housekeepers. Mum, is there something you need? Asked Amber, wiping her hands. Ashley raised her hand gently. Please don't mind me. Continue what you're doing. I'm just bored in the room. Amber chuckled. You and Sir Jacob were getting along fine earlier. Everything still okay? Ashley smiled awkwardly. So we still seemed okay, huh? Lydia suddenly chimed in. That's true, ma'am. Before Sir Jacob went upstairs, he handed us this recipe. It's for your favorite beef stew. He said it's what he wants served tomorrow." Lydia giggled as if tickled by excitement. Ashley stood and took the paper from her, recognizing her mum's handwriting. "Maybe my mum gave it to him when we visited earlier," Ashley reasoned. Lydia's smile faded, and Amber gave her daughter a subtle pinch. "I'll leave you to it, Amber and Lydia," Ashley said, walking back to her room. She was restless. There was nothing else to do, especially since she wasn't allowed to help with house chores. Life now was very different for Ashley. Before, she worked herself to the bone to provide for her family. Day and night she hustled non-stop. When she returned, Jacob was asleep on the sofa. Ashley approached quietly and sat nearby, watching his face. "You look so gentle when you're asleep, but when you're awake, you're like an angry bird with those furrowed brows," she whispered. "I know you're still upset with me, but you'll get used to me. You don't have to treat me like a real wife. I don't even know how to explain why I agreed to your grandpa's terms, or what situation I was trying to escape. I'm not a gold digger, though it probably looks that way." Ashley stood to walk away, but suddenly Jacob grabbed her hand and pulled her back. Startled, she looked down at him, but he was still asleep. "Don't leave me. I can't. Please," Jacob mumbled in his sleep, his voice full of sadness. Ashley sighed and slowly clasped his hand in return. After a few moments, he relaxed and fell into a deeper sleep. When Jacob woke up later, he was clearly in a foul mood. Ashley didn't say anything, figuring whatever dream he had had probably stirred some painful memory. Still, she quietly brought him a snack that Amber had prepared. She placed the food on his desk as he worked on his laptop. "Just keep working. Don't mind me. I only brought it because if I sent Amber in, she'd chatter your ear off. You looked busy." Jacob gave a hesitant nod. He had a lot to say, but only a few words escaped. "I've been putting off this report for over a week. Didn't get around to it because of the wedding." "You mad about that?" Ashley asked. "If I'd known you were this busy, I would have asked your grandpa to postpone things a little." Jacob scoffed. "He wouldn't do that. It's always what he wants. And maybe you'd change your mind and back out." "I wouldn't have backed out. Not with that kind of offer. I was nervous because I didn't know you, but now, even if you're grumpy every day, I'm okay." Jacob rolled his eyes but didn't respond. Ashley sat on the sofa, watching him. "I heard you had a lover before," she teased. Jacob frowned. "Lover? I've never even had a girlfriend. Where'd you hear that? You want my grandpa to kill me with that kind of gossip?" Ashley laughed and shook her head. Jacob leaned back in his chair, still confused. "Don't pretend. While you were asleep, you held my hand and begged me not to leave. You must have thought I was someone else. You even called out." Jacob's expression shifted to sadness, though he tried to hide it. "That wasn't a lover. I was dreaming about my mum. She left me when I was 7, after my dad died." Ashley covered her mouth in shock. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." Jacob sighed. "Being sweet doesn't suit you." "What did you say?" Ashley stood defensively, but Jacob only laughed. "I thought you didn't want Amber to come in because she talks too much, but you might be worse." Ashley turned away, embarrassed. She stood and slowly walked out of the room. "All right, I'm leaving. Sorry for the interruption," she mumbled. Jacob didn't reply, but he watched her walk away, and without realizing it, a smile crept onto his face. When he noticed, he quickly looked in the mirror to fix his expression. Later that day, Jacob returned to the bedroom. Ashley was already asleep. After showering, he lay down beside her carefully so he wouldn't wake her. He reached for the blanket, but Ashley instinctively pulled it all to her side. "Leave some for me," she muttered in her sleep. "I'll freeze without it." Jacob pulled the blanket back, but Ashley wouldn't budge. He looked at the air conditioning unit and wanted to turn it off, but refrained out of consideration. He sighed and looked over at her sleeping form. "Even when you're asleep, you're giving me a headache," he whispered. Frustrated, Jacob tugged the blanket harder, but ended up pulling Ashley onto his chest. He froze, stunned. He tried to push her off, but she only hugged him tighter. Jacob chuckled softly and stared at her face. "Let's see what you say when you wake up," he whispered, closing his eyes with Ashley still holding onto him. The next morning, Ashley slowly opened her eyes, smiling as she saw the handsome face in front of her. For a moment she thought he was an angel, but when she realized who it was, she quickly recoiled and pulled her arms away from Jacob. Oh my God, did something happen again? She wondered. She patted herself all over to check for any pain or signs, but there was nothing. Still, she groaned at the realization that she had, in fact, hugged Jacob all night. She was about to get out of bed when Jacob suddenly pulled her back. She fell onto the mattress and turned, expecting he was sleepwalking again, but instead she saw a mischievous grin on his face. "Let go of me, Jacob, or I swear I'll punch you," Ashley warned. Jacob only laughed and tightened his grip around her. "You held me all night so tightly I couldn't move, and now you're running away." Ashley panicked at his words and wriggled away like a worm doused in salt. When she finally broke free, she bolted out of the room, with Jacob laughing as he followed. "Stay away from me, you perv!" she shouted. "Oh, really? You're the one who slept soundly while hugging me," Jacob replied. Ashley clenched her fists, humiliated and annoyed by his teasing. They were heading downstairs when they both froze at the sight of Simon, Mildred and Darla, already in the living room. "What are you all doing here?" Ashley asked. She and Jacob quickly fixed their hair and posture. Simon and the others were grinning, clearly having caught the commotion. But when Ashley's frown deepened, everyone stopped themselves from teasing further. "Sorry if we're intruding," Simon joked, making the house staff smile too. They had witnessed the couple's playfulness and were secretly entertained. Jacob hurried down and greeted his grandfather and mother-in-law respectfully. Ashley followed right behind. "Sorry for the sudden visit," Mildred said. "Darla's teacher called in sick, so there's no class today. We thought we'd come visit. We ran into Mr. Simon at the gate, and he gave us a ride." "I see, Mom. Please have a seat. Would you like to join us for breakfast?" Ashley offered. "Brush your hair first, sweetheart. You look like you were chased by a horse," Mildred said teasingly. Jacob tried to suppress a laugh, covering his mouth as Ashley pinched his side. "Sleep with one eye open tonight," she muttered under her breath. "If you don't, I might cover your mouth and nose so you can't breathe." She turned and marched back upstairs. Jacob glanced nervously at Simon. "Did you hear that? Your favorite girl just threatened me," he whispered. Simon only laughed and shook his head. Mildred and Darla chuckled too. Jacob could only gape in disbelief before turning back to look at his wife, who, despite everything, made him smile and shake his head. They weren't exactly in sync, but somehow he knew his life wouldn't be the same anymore. With Ashley around, it became normal in the household for the couple to chase each other around and playfully bicker. Even the house staff enjoyed their antics. But over time, everyone started noticing that when it came to serious matters, Jacob and Ashley were surprisingly united. One time, Ashley got sick. "Dr. Diaz will be here shortly," Jacob said, entering the room. "You're not going to bite the doctor, are you?" Ashley groaned. "Can I call time out?" "I don't have the energy to argue with you right now." Jacob smiled and gently held a glass to her lips so she could take her medicine, helping her sit up to drink. "I thought you had a meeting," she asked. "Why haven't you left yet?" Jacob looked away and swallowed hard. "Everyone downstairs is busy, so I volunteered to give you the meds. Besides, I'm the boss. No one can get mad if I'm late." Ashley chuckled weakly. So you really made time for me. Thanks, I guess. You don't have to worry about me, Jacob said. Didn't you say bad weeds live long? Someone like me won't die that easily. I'm not worried about you. I just don't want to catch whatever it is you've got, Ashley quipped. If that's how you want to see it, Jacob said, helping her lie back down. He stood quietly by her side until she closed her eyes. Then he grabbed his things and headed out. Before leaving, he stopped by the kitchen. Amber, if Ashley needs anything, call me right away, he instructed. Amber nodded, watching as Jacob got into his car. A few minutes later, Dr. Diaz arrived with a nurse and went straight to Ashley's room. Meanwhile, Jacob was in a board meeting with Simon and other executives. When his phone rang, it was Dr. Diaz. Without hesitation, he answered, interrupting the presenter. Doctor, is there something wrong with my wife? No, Mr. Martinez. I actually called to give you some good news. I hope you're ready to hear it. Jacob tensed. What do you mean? Congratulations. Your wife is pregnant. Jacob froze in his seat, his phone slipping from his hand. His colleague scrambled to pick it up. What's going on? Simon asked urgently. Jacob was too stunned to speak. Deep inside, though, his heart was racing with joy. Did something happen to Ashley? Simon asked again, already rising from his seat, ready to leave the meeting. No, Grandpa, I'm going to be a father. You mean Ashley's pregnant? Jacob nodded. Simon let out a shout of joy, throwing his cane into the air. Everyone in the room laughed and congratulated them. I have to go see her, Jacob said. Go, Simon replied. I'll follow soon. I'll call my OB friend to make sure Ashley's okay. Jacob smiled at how concerned his grandfather was. He quickly got into his car and drove home. Meanwhile, Ashley was pacing around their room, holding her stomach. So, he's really not sterile, she whispered, placing a hand on her forehead. She looked down at her belly and smiled sadly. What if Jacob isn't happy about this? Just then, the door burst open, and Jacob came in. Ashley! Without wasting a second, he ran to her and pulled her into a hug. Is something wrong? She asked. Jacob laughed and held her tighter. The doctor told me, you're pregnant. Ashley's mouth fell open. You're this happy, just because of that? Of course, I can't explain it, but when I heard the news, I was so happy. It felt like I won the lottery. I mean, who wouldn't be? We're going to be parents, Ashley. Tears welled up in Ashley's eyes. I thought you wouldn't be happy. I thought you'd just settle with the fact that we did what your grandfather wanted. I didn't expect you to be this excited. Thank you. Jacob looked surprised by her words. He cupped her cheeks and smiled. I understand why you'd think that, but from now on, don't ever doubt how we feel about you. Especially Grandpa. You know, he nearly ran over here thinking something bad happened. He sees you as family, Ashley. I see you as family. Ashley nodded and wiped her tears. The OB said it's not good for the baby if the mother's always sad. Jacob smiled and nodded. Yeah, crying doesn't suit you. You look like Shrek. Ashley elbowed him. You always ruin the moment. They both laughed. Jacob hugged her again. A few minutes later, Simon arrived, with Amber and Darla in tow. They had just heard the news. From that point on, Jacob stayed by Ashley's side through the pregnancy. Nothing really changed between them. There was still playful teasing, but those moments always brought smiles to their faces. Though Ashley experienced nausea, hip pain, and dizziness, her mum and Simon were always there to ensure she was cared for. Still, Ashley sometimes found herself wondering, what does Jacob really feel for me? Not just as the mother of his child, but as me, Ashley? The OB had advised Ashley to avoid raw meats from now on. We won't be preparing any dishes like that anymore, Jacob said firmly. And as for the architect visiting the house, Let them handle things. I don't want anything falling near Ashley." Lydia and Amber exchanged glances, trying not to smile as they watched Jacob. His concern for his wife was obvious, and they couldn't help but feel moved and a little giddy at the sight. "Yes, sir. You can count on us to make sure Mom and your baby are safe," Amber replied. Jacob nodded and headed back to their room, where Ashley sat quietly on the sofa. As soon as he walked in, he noticed the sadness in her eyes. "Is something wrong?" he asked. "Did I do something again?" Ashley let out a soft laugh. "That's really the first thing you think of?" Jacob stepped closer. "I don't know. It just felt like you were sad. Maybe it's because we've been together for a few months now. Are you sure everything's okay?" Ashley looked at him and gave a faint smile. She wanted so badly to ask him the questions that had been weighing on her mind, but the words wouldn't come out. She didn't know where to begin, or if it was even the right time to bring it up. "I'm fine," she finally said. "Don't overthink it." "I'm not used to seeing you so quiet," Jacob said, handing her a small paper bag. Ashley peeked inside and saw her favorite sponge cake. Her eyes lit up instantly, her mood shifting. "There, now you're smiling again." Ashley laughed and opened the bag, taking a bite. Jacob watched her quietly, clearly pleased. She tried to push away the thoughts swirling in her mind. Whether Jacob loved her or not didn't matter right now. What mattered was that he would be a good father to their child. Ashley thought she could keep going like that, convincing herself it didn't matter. But as time went on, she became more comfortable around Jacob. She wanted to believe her growing feelings were just because of her pregnancy, but deep down, she knew it was her heart speaking. She had fallen in love with Jacob, but she kept denying it to herself. What she didn't expect was that the one to bring clarity to what they truly felt would be the child she carried. "Sir, you can only stay here," the nurse told Jacob. "You're not allowed inside the emergency room." Jacob cried silently as he watched Ashley being wheeled into the ER. Earlier, she had suddenly doubled over in pain, clutching her stomach and sobbing in agony. They rushed her to the hospital, but Jacob was overwhelmed with fear. "It's not even her due date. She's only 7 months along. She can't be giving birth yet. What's happening? Are they going to be okay?" he asked frantically. The nurse didn't reply. She gave him a small, sympathetic smile, then gently removed his hand from her arm. "We'll be back with an update soon, sir. We'll do everything we can." Jacob collapsed into a chair and cried, praying desperately for God to save both Ashley and their baby. His hands were trembling so badly that he couldn't even hold his phone properly to call his grandfather. After about 30 minutes, instead of a nurse, a doctor approached and quickly called for Jacob to come into the office. "What's the condition of my wife and baby?" he asked urgently. The doctor sighed, visibly tired. "Mr. Martinez, we need to operate on your wife immediately. She's experiencing placental abruption. In other words, the placenta has separated from the uterus. We need to act fast, but because she's only 7 months pregnant, the baby may not survive if the lungs haven't fully developed." Jacob stepped back, stunned. "You're asking me to choose, aren't you?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Martinez. We'll do everything we can to save them both, but we're not God. In situations like this, we need to know, if it comes down to it, who should we prioritize?" "No, you haven't even started yet, and you're already talking like one of them might not make it. Save them both," Jacob cried. The doctor sighed again, trying to calm him. He understood Jacob's panic. This was a matter of life and death. "Getting angry won't help, Mr. Martinez. Like I said, we'll try our best, but we can't promise anything. This is just a precaution in case something unexpected happens during surgery." Jacob's strength drained from him, and he slumped into a nearby chair, sobbing. It felt like his whole world was crashing down. "My wife! Save my wife!" he finally said, his voice breaking. The doctor nodded solemnly and rushed out. Soon after, Simon arrived at the hospital. He was crying too, and immediately embraced his grandson. Hours later, the doctor returned. Jacob stood up at once. Simon, Mildred, and Darla were all nearby, waiting anxiously. The doctor removed his surgical mask. He looked exhausted, but managed a smile. Both mother and child are stable. They fought hard and pulled through. Mrs. Martinez just needs time to recover. You'll be able to see her soon. Jacob burst into tears of relief and hugged his grandfather tightly. When Ashley finally woke up, Jacob was at her side. Seeing him cry again made her eyes well up with tears. The doctor told me, "You were asked to choose who to save. Why did you pick me?" she asked softly. Jacob lowered his head, gently holding her hand. He kissed the back of her palm. "I wasn't thinking about anything else in that moment but how I would survive without you. I know you love our baby. I love our baby too. But I believed you'd fight for our child. I knew you wouldn't give up. And besides, I haven't even told you how much I love you yet. Even if we argue like cats and dogs, I can't imagine a day without you." Ashley's tears fell as she smiled. Those were the words she had longed to hear. She rested a hand on her belly and whispered, "Did you help me? Is this how you're showing us the truth, helping us see what's really in our hearts?" Jacob embraced her, and Ashley cried quietly in his arms. "I know it wasn't easy for you to choose me," she said. "But I want you to know, you didn't just save my life, you gave me the chance to become a mother, and I'll thank you every day for that." Ashley remained in the hospital for several more days to recover. By God's grace, she continued to heal, and no further complications occurred. And before giving birth, she and Jacob were married again, this time in a church ceremony. Their love bore fruit in the form of a healthy, adorable baby boy named Caleb Jesse, a name that meant new beginning, a gift from God. Ashley and Jacob raised CJ with love and commitment. Everything they achieved came down to one thing: their willingness to stand by each other and believe in what they had. "CJ, slow down, honey. You might fall," Ashley called out anxiously. "Jacob, come on, put him down already," she added, watching nervously as father and son played. Jacob and 6-year-old CJ were in the garden, where Jacob was teaching him how to ride a bike without training wheels. Ashley watched them, clutching her chest with worry. "I'm right here. I won't let anything happen to our son. And even if he falls, that's part of learning. Right, son?" CJ gave his dad a thumbs up with a wide smile. He turned to his mom. "I want to learn, Mommy. I promise I'll be careful." Ashley finally smiled, unable to say no, seeing how determined CJ was. She stayed on the sidelines, heart pounding, as she watched her son take off. Then she stood up in shock when CJ managed to ride on his own for the first time. "Mommy, Mommy, look at me!" CJ shouted with glee, unable to hide the joy in his voice. Ashley laughed and nearly jumped with excitement. "Mommy, Daddy, I don't know how to stop." The smiles on Ashley and Jacob's faces quickly vanished as CJ's bike headed straight for the fish pond, where Simon was feeding his koi fish. In the end, all three, Jacob, Ashley, and CJ, ended up falling into the pond together. Soaked, they stood and looked down at their dripping clothes before bursting into laughter. "Mommy, Daddy, we're all soaked," CJ said between giggles. Jacob stood up with a mischievous grin. "Really? Looks like your mommy isn't wet enough yet." Then he splashed more water on Ashley, making her squeal and laugh. She splashed him back, and soon they were chasing each other around Simon's garden, laughing like children. "You've stressed out my koi fish because of your antics," Simon yelled from a distance. The couple froze and turned to each other, still dripping wet. They only stopped running when Simon scolded them. "Grandpa, do you love your fish more than us now?" Jacob teased. Simon shook his head and flicked Jacob's forehead. Watch your mouth. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have met Ashley. You wouldn't be smiling like this now, surrounded by family. You're changing the subject again, Grandpa, Jacob said with a chuckle. Of course, I'm thankful you brought Ashley into my life. You were God's instrument. Oh, look what you've done. You've turned the garden into a playground, Simon said, shaking his head, but clearly amused. He gave Jacob a light smack on the arm. I don't know where you got your mischievous side. Now go get changed. You might make your wife and child sick. CJ grabbed both his parents' hands, and together the family walked back inside the house, with Simon following behind. Inside, Mildred was preparing snacks while Darla helped her in the kitchen. Simon continued to grumble playfully as everyone else simply smiled. Ashley watched them quietly, heart full. She used to ask God why life seemed so unfair. There were times she thought her struggles would never end, when the weight of her sacrifices felt unbearable, and she questioned whether it was all worth it. But now, all of those questions had been answered. It was true. God had a beautiful plan for everyone. All we had to do was trust in His power, and wait for the right time meant for us.